Hi, Sancia.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
How about you?
Good. The sun is shining. Great.
Yeah.
My kids are outside playing. They did their homework today. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's always a challenge.
It really is. Danielle, Hank is a French bulldog.
He's a cutie. Maybe he'll make an appearance at the end if he's a good boy.
Maybe if he wakes up. Right now he's currently snoring quietly, flat on his back, all four paws up in the air. Life is good.
There you go. So it's top of the hour, and so we should get going on this lovely day. Hopefully we can answer some questions for people or shape our conversation. Again, we welcome all the educators out there to our hour, and hopefully you feel comfortable about sharing ideas in the chat or speaking out using your microphone, joining this camera. It's getting to be a lovely little community here. So as you feel more comfortable with it, please join in a way that makes you feel comfortable and connected. So
I see lots of names of people who are kind of returning every week. And it does feel nice to be able to make those connections and see some faces and familiar names. So again, thanks for being here.
Mm-hmm. And giving us ideas and pushing our thinking too about where to go next. So Jen, have you been traipsing around in mud puddles lately, or you always seem to have some kind of adventure?
My adventures have been mud puddles in the basement.
Oh no, that's not good. Okay, well maybe this hour will distract you a little bit from this.
That would be great.
Yeah, there we go. So we have our image that actually we talked a little bit about last week about the St. Clair River. So, and Anjanan, the home of First Nation people there, and how the landscape continues to change around us to each day and each week. But then if we think back reflectively on what it might have looked like 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, how might things have changed? So as we think about our territorial acknowledgement today, we acknowledge that we are gathered on the land that is part of the traditional territory of the Chippewa, Odawa, Potawatomi, and Delaware nations. These nations, indigenous nations known as the Nishbek and Lenape, agreed through their ancestral languages to the mutual sharing of the land with obligations and responsibilities to the environment. Today, these responsibilities and obligations extend to all peoples. So welcome again. I'm Pam, starting off the chat today, but my partner Alicia is with me. So hi, Alicia, how are you?
Hi, I'm great.
Good. Trying to figure out which is the best place to put people today, my little comic strip faces.
I was just doing the same thing, actually.
Yeah.
I look distracted, probably.
I probably look confused and getting that vertical line going deep there. For that, but
today I actually, today I added our Twitter handles as well. If you want to follow us on Twitter, and again, just put our email addresses there if you ever want to reach out. If you have any questions following sessions or at any point, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So thanks for sketching up the plan. Alicia, do you want to talk us through what we kind of settled on?
Yeah, so today is going to be I feel like today is going to be a full plate. So we are first of all going to check in with, see if anyone had a chance to dig around with some provocation videos, maybe if you want to share some experiences. And then after that, we are going to journey into the water of communication of learning. With the report card memo just coming out, we thought that perhaps there would be some questions and maybe just an opportunity to kind of chat about what that might look like and using Seesaw to support. And then depending on time, it's all going to depend on kind of how that conversation goes. we have a couple teachers who have offered to share about some choice boards. I know the big thing right now are the Bitmoji classrooms and the virtual classrooms. And I found some of our own LKDSB educators who are doing amazing things with it. And I'm not gonna lie, I played around with it last night and I was up till like after 11 trying to create my own classroom. So that was fun. So we'll talk about that. And then last, we wanna kind of throw an idea at you guys for next week's office hours and get some feedback. So a full plate, we're glad you're here.
And any additional questions that you have, throw them in the chat or voice on microphone. You know, great, many minds here. Maybe we can have a conversation about it and find something that supports you and your students. Oh, provocation videos. Last week we had some contributions from people. We did some learning ourselves about what provocation videos are all about. So how do you pose a problem or create a sense of intrigue? So I wonder, did anybody have anything that they wanted to share about that?
And again, you can put anything in the chat if you'd like, or you can come off mic and share any successes or any challenges maybe. I know Danielle, when we first started, she was sharing a success. Danielle, I don't know if you wanted to share with the larger group. Please don't feel like you have to, but you were kind of sharing something with us that was a success in your world.
So I, this week, was able to actually post a video for next week. I did the whole boat STEM activity that you guys did, and I found that if I use the Seesaw app, I can actually upload a video faster. Instead of it being 4 hours, it went up in 20 minutes. So I just had to use my laptop and balance it on my arm so that the kids could see. But I'm actually looking for, there's a provocation video that I wanted to share because Parks Ontario has been putting out some really great content.
Ooh.
And they had one, and I thought I had bookmarked it here, so I was trying to find it to post it in the comments for everybody. But it was on, like, trying to find something in your backyard, and the girl ends up, like, she shows all these different clues, and she's trying to provoke the kids to think about the fact that there's been a bunny who's eaten the plants and left fur in her backyard. So if I find it, I'll post it for everybody to see.
Great, that would be amazing. Kelly just added in and said it was on Instagram. It was super neat. So yeah, if you happen to find that, throw it up in the chat. That would be great. Anyone else have any success with provocation videos? Or any videos, really?
Yeah, or questions about videos or apps, that sort of thing. I'm not one to actually post a lot on Twitter. Like, I tend to retweet and things on Twitter, but that's a great idea to follow something like Parks Canada, you know, local communities, that sort of thing, because there might be something there that you can snag off of their posts, so you can think of an idea to share, find our own provocations.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that now that we kind of having this conversation, I look at things differently, and I, you know, go out and I'm thinking like, oh, how could that, you know, inspire our students, or how could I use this kind of idea? So it's nice to kind of always have that in the back of your mind as well.
Yeah, it's interesting when you think about changing your view on things. I think my biggest takeaway from last week about talking about the provocation is just keep it short and not give away the answer. So like, just like put something out there for the pure sake of provocation. My first inkling is always to give an answer, like, you know, try this or use this tool. So, but just float it out there and see where the direction goes. Take the time to slow down.
That's hard for us educators not to give the answer sometimes. It's just in us. That's what we feel like we need to do. So definitely. Oh, Danielle put the link up there. Thank you for that. All right, Pam.
Okay, trucking along here. Yeah. So when we were thinking about 'tis the season for report writing, communication learning time, probably one of the big things that we all have weighing on our mind is our documentation. and that a couple of things kind of weigh in our mind about it, like the volume, like do we have too much of certain things and but then not enough volume in another capacity. So so how might we manage that, or how do we navigate that in this land of remote learning? So like what our documentation has taken a big shift since March break. How might that have changed things, and how might we view the documentation before, and what are we doing now? Like I don't have necessarily answers, and Alicia, like we've been bouncing things off. We don't necessarily have answers, but we just want to have a conversation, or just like say that yeah, we're looking at things in a different way. And like our curriculum partners, like what's that relationship? How is that being used? How do we move forward in our documentation piece? So if you have ways of that's happening, we'd love to hear about that, just to share stories and work together. So just some thoughts to get us going. Like normally when we're in that time span of writing our communication of learning, what are the things that we ground ourselves in to help us have that professional, what are our professional responsibilities, and where do we put in our professional judgment on that? So in the normal times, we're guided by the kindergarten curriculum, and we have a lot of judgment in how we communicate with that with our students, how we engage students in learning. And then we're also bound by the responsibilities in the Growing Success Kindergarten Addendum about how we go about assessing our students. So there's some guidelines for us there to follow on that. But now, like, we are living in a different time. Like, we're learning from a different stance. We're engaging with students not in a regular way. And some of them, we may have families that are opting to out of the learning. So what does that mean looking forward? So when we have that kind of question, we are looking towards the ministry to help us guide that. So, the first thing they said, report cards will go out. So we know that. And then from our perspective of the board, there's memos that come out and help us guide that. So again, there's a lot of opportunity for professional judgment with this, within all of this. So we'll move forward thinking about like, how are we looking at what our students are sharing with us, some questions in response to provocations we have or questions we have, and how might we go moving forward on that. So we'll just kind of move in that landscape at all.
And I think it's safe to say that there has been a little bit on the wonky side, and our documentation may not look like it would in other years. We kind of started off a little rough, and then this all happened. So being flexible and just, being confident in that whole professional judgment piece. Your students, your learners. So that's something to keep in mind, because, it's safe to say that maybe you have some things that you could have used in the beginning and you feel confident with using, but you may not have as much. And now we've switched into remote learning, and what does that look like? So it's okay to have those concerns and to have those questions, and we're trying to do our best to help. And obviously we're waiting for more updates from the ministry as we move forward.
From what I understand, there's always going to be more information coming from the ministry about the details on the reporting piece. So as we wait for those announcements. So,
Pam,
but
I don't
like
know.
We think about, no, go ahead.
Sorry, I just didn't know if we wanted to pause, because there is a little bit of conversation kind of happening just about the provocation videos. And I don't know if we wanted to quickly talk about
Go
that.
back.
Yeah, just so Carrie was saying that she was trying to access her mic, but it wasn't working for her. So she was saying that even when they give the provocations, the families tend to go right to the most obvious answer, as opposed to kind of that investigating piece, and wondered if you have any suggestions for shifting the mindset. And then a few people have hopped on and said, yeah, we're finding the same thing. Diana, did you want to speak to that last part that you just wrote?
Sure. I did one of those math before beds, where you put the picture, and like I said, there's no right answer. I just want to know what you think. And I had probably 10 kids say it's this answer because of this, and it was the exact same answer. So then I waited the week, and then I posted the same picture but then was able to tap into some of the Seesaw tools, and I was able to like use the mic and just chat it out, like encircling different things and saying, well, it could be this, or it could be this, or this might work, this is another thing. So I just posted it in I Wonder Wednesday today to hopefully kind of stimulate a few more questions, as opposed to just going right to, okay, this is the exact answer. So I'm hoping, but I'm open to any other suggestions as to how to kind of move past the, all right, it has to be this because this, end of story. Like there's no conversation or no, like, it's hard to give feedback when families or parents or kids are just like, it's this, boom.
Yeah. Yeah. And I noticed, I kind of felt the same. So last week when I shared that video about the magnet tiles and making those pattern with them, I was hoping that some students might see the shape pattern, some might see the color patterns, and just to kind of be open to whatever might come out. And I've always questioned sharing other students' responses in order to stimulate more conversation and see a different perspective. But I don't know how people are feeling about using other students' ideas in order to kind of provoke conversation. Does anybody have any thoughts or want to weigh in on that?
I was thinking too about when you have provocation, is a shift in thinking like that, because it's an open question. So like we often have that stance where we ask closed questions, yes or no, there's one answer. And that's like a comfortable spot for a lot of teachers and the adults in the room. And so how do we shift our own way so we allow kids to have that open response? So we do want to value all answers. So I like that, Diane, that you're, going back at it again. So like giving people some ideas. I know some teachers have been sharing about the Seesaw, like when you give feedback using the voice option in feedback rather than typing something in. So like we've talked many times about the benefit of kids hearing your voice back with that. So even if that's the response, thanks for sharing your answer. Do you have another idea? Like, or tell me more about that. So we have the questions in response. And sometimes we move on from provocations too quickly too. Like what happens when we sit and simmer and think about things a little bit longer in our classrooms, we tend to get a little bit deeper. So I like your idea, Diana, that you're revisiting it as well.
I think that a lot of our families too, like they didn't grow up in the provocation era and this open-mindedness and like there's more than one answer. So I struggle too. Like I'd really like to find a way to maybe educate my parents about it more, but at the same time, because of lack of participation, just in my area, I don't know that I would get much more response with all that effort, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
And it's also maybe the learning we're doing about provocations is really about our own professional learning, where we take some time to mull it over, think about it, and it's a September journey. Like, how do we engage that piece?
Yeah, and there's some kind of conversations happening in the text about saying that she thinks a lot of the families are simply trying to just accomplish the things that are posted and not digging deeper. And absolutely, it tends to be kind of that survival mode. And some families have more time than others. So that could be another piece. And someone was also mentioning mixed feelings about sharing children's answers. I've been finding that it has been making other families uncomfortable to post. So again, definitely something that you need to kind of reach out and everyone has their own kind of feelings on that. So let's keep thinking about that kind of conversation and maybe we can do some more.
Absolutely. Like knowing the student and knowing the family, like that's an excellent touchstone for us, like to come back to all the time. And we also have to value that what they share with us electronically back may not be the only thing that they've been doing in the learning. Like it may have evolved or revisited again at bedtime. Like it's not just those moments that they choose to share with us. So lots of things to consider. switching up here. So if we are thinking about the communication of learning time, you know, what we are as educators get to do when we write the communication of learning is we're thinking about those overall expectations, but we're still working within that context of sharing the key learning and the growth in learning. And again, so looking back and finding out what has been that key learning for those students and what has been the growth in learning for students. And so as we communicate in the 4 frames, there's a lot of professional judgment about what gets shared in those frames. And so again, it's that individual student story, and then what's next for them as they're learning. So, and again, the next step is doesn't have to be in each of the 4 frames. So it's be thinking about that holistically. And we may find that through this time we've gotten to know our parents in a different way. And so it's helped us maybe as we go about and crafting the response of the communication and learning, the language we're using in that. So we show that partnership in the learning with the child. So again, just grounding our thoughts there. So if we know we're moving forward in that and we're going to look at our documentation, how do we help us write those key learnings and growth in learnings and next steps in learning? Where are we getting that information? So again, it comes down to that question of managing information. So I wonder if we could just pose a question to the group. It's like, what are you doing to help manage the documentation that you have? Or how are you managing the documentation now that it's shifted from when you were seeing it in class to being at home? You can just give a moment for people to put something in the chat or speak out.
I think that's one thing, Pam, that I always tended to kind of struggle with a little bit, even not being in the FDK world, but in any grades that I've taught or worked with, is just making a kind of like a way to manage the documentation. So when it comes to report card writing time, or when it comes to these times that we have to assess, that it doesn't feel overwhelming. So, yeah.
Well, it's okay to move on here just a little bit. Hi, somebody. Yep.
Yeah. I've been just like, when we have Google Meets live, just been trying to jot down things that they're talking about activities that we've done, like if they say something, or even going back on their activities and looking at the responses and just making a couple like private notes on it. To see where their learning is, or even socially emotional, like if they've participated in an activity. A lot of my kids will do it with their siblings or whatnot, and I can talk about, you know, that relationship piece and stuff.
That's great that you're using the evidence you see, you know, in a Google Meet, like, right? So it's an observation in that moment. It's not that, it doesn't necessarily have to be a product that's done in Seesaw as well.
Danielle, did you want to share what you wrote in the chat?
Sure. Where exactly are you looking for me to go, Alicia?
So just, I noticed, like you said, you're sticking with documentation that you had on Seesaw prior, but right now it doesn't seem sufficient enough to use. Just wondering if you could expand on that a little bit.
Oh, so I've got my stuff on Seesaw and I'm using that. It's anything that from like the online after March break, that it doesn't seem like I've got enough. Like I have some kids who show up maybe once or twice. I've had some kids not show up at all during this whole time. So I feel like if I use the documentation of what I'm seeing now, it doesn't seem to balance out and fair with those other kids who aren't participating at all. That was all I meant.
Yeah. And I think that's reality for sure.
Yeah.
And then I also feel a little stressed over it because I've only been in the classroom for 31 days. Like I started in January, and then between our strike days And this lockdown, I counted up, it was 31 days I had the kids. So it's even tougher to come up with these comments and ideas that are personal to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like, you know, we have that time frame of like term one, term two, you know, the February date. But, you know, we also have in kindergarten, like the idea we're looking at key learning, growth and learning, and what's next for those learners. You know, naturally we're reflecting back, you know, to find out about those students. So, you know, even in your case, you may only know them since January, but like if you have something that shows like early in the year and thinking like, oh, they're starting to really connect with like those literacy pieces and retell stories, like that might be, we are naturally looking back about the growth to show their growth and learning. So again, that's our professional judgment. Where do we gather that evidence to help us share that knowledge? And I agree. People are probably feeling these are not going to be my stellar communication or learning. You know, that is the reality of the situation. So if we ground ourselves in thinking, you know, but we are going to share some moments of what's the learning has been for children. You know, if we can share that, I think that's, you know, the best we can do right now. Thank you for sharing that, though.
No problem.
I think to yesterday, you know, chatting, and we were talking about finding that baseline. So knowing where our youngsters were when they came in, what they were able to do, and just kind of thinking about their growth and how they have come along prior to that March. Now, there's nothing to be said that you can't use, you know, the documentation, little documentation and activities that you do have in the remote learning. And again, yes, chances are they've been supported at home. But again, it's just kind of, if you can use that as a positive and something they're continuing to do, and you can see them kind of continuing to grow, no, it's not going to be the most authentic. However, it is, if you think about that kind of baseline and where they started, that'll kind of give you that kind of continuum there.
Absolutely. So we were wondering about like how we might leverage Seesaw to help us manage that information in a piece. So we've got Alicia, just the screen capture here, but we will go live into that. So again, just kind of grounding ourselves where we are. So Alicia, can you just talk about your folder situation here?
Okay, so I'm going to be honest here. My folders are totally made up and they're fictional because I only have a sample student in class. But what is nice and what I love about Seesaw is that you can create whatever folders, you can customize them for whatever works for you. So yesterday when I was kind of going through one of my activities, I put, you know, the 4 frames in there in my folders, but then I thought about those early reading, early decoding skills, the early writing, like the scribbles and all of those kind of things. So I had just kind of gone through and made a whole bunch of different folders that I know are skills that I would probably look for in my classroom. And then thinking about that one provocation that I didn't share last week, but I think about it, what it had to do with. And I think the nice part for me is that you can tag more than one folder. So it doesn't have to just go in mathematical behaviors folder. You can actually add more folders or add it to more folders, which might kind of try to manage that a little bit more.
I was wondering too about like, lots of teachers have shared that they use the 4 frames but often split literacy and numeracy pieces up like you have done, even broadening into that early reading and writing. I wondered even like a folder that's like remote learning folder. So we kind of be able to sort between things that we gathered in school time, and then these are the things that we may have been gathering since we've been at home learning. So that might just give us a little bit of a lens about that as well. So I'm going to hop over to the actual class. So I have permission from a friend here to take a look at Seesaw through her class, but I'm going to go back out of that for a moment and share mine for about the folder piece. And because we were talking about sometimes we forget to put things in folders. So we were just wondering about, have people learned some lessons about using folders over time? If they want to pipe in and share that, you can give some guidance on that. So
There's
Alicia gave us
lots going on in the
that.
chat about people having like math at home, language at home, having those remote learning folders, and that they're working out well. So that's great to hear.
Very good. I was wondering too about, again, this is my mess around one, but like when you log into your journal piece, it's that scrolling piece. I was wondering now when we're in that communication and learning mode, what might be the value of looking at it through the calendar lens? Because then you could say like, you know, what's been happening in the month of May and April compared back to what was happening when I, you know, got to see them in prior to that. So I created mine in March, so I can't go back, but you can go back. So having that calendar view might be able to help you out. And what I discovered is that in this class journal that I have here, you can actually sort. So if you put in your folder, then it does sort your calendar by that as well. So I thought that was a nice little way of sorting the information. So you go from all your activities to you can sort it based on that piece. So if you're looking to say, you know, what was I doing last week compared to what was I doing before when we were in class learning, you may wish to sort based on that, and that might help you give some evidence of the growth and learning kind of piece.
Val, you had written there in the chat about tagging your activities to a folder so that when they're done, they can automatically go into that particular folder. Did you want to speak to that?
Sure. So when we first started, we were kind of posting through the activities and also just like pick collage ideas and stuff like that here and there. And between myself and my teaching partner, we realized that it was kind of going all over the place. So we decided about 3 weeks in, 2 weeks in maybe, that we were just strictly going to go through activities and post all of our activities through activities. When you post an activity, when you assign it, you can check all the students that you want to see it, but there's also an option for folders. So you can click the folder. So we had started like a math at home, a language at home, miscellaneous at home, and then I think just like links or something like that. So if it's a math activity that we're doing, we can edit the folder so that when the student saves their work, hands it in, it automatically goes to that math at home folder. So then when we're writing report cards, I can look at that child with their math at home folder and kind of see the stuff that they have done at home.
Right. And you were doing that proactively then. So you were saying, we're going to put this in.
I'm kind of an organizational freak, and my teaching partner can probably speak to that. It's almost annoying at some point.
Yeah.
When you have so many students and you have so many things going on, like it's being proactive kind of saves some, not all, some headaches in the long run.
Very good. So, but I think you can go back and edit the.
It's only when you assign. So if you click that assign button.
Yeah.
And then your students will come up and see it says edit students, folders, and skills. Click on that, you can click on the students that you want to see it. So this obviously will be helpful now because if parents choose option 3, you can just uncheck their child and then they won't get the assignment. And then you click on the folder that you want it to go to.
Okay.
Check that, and then you can attach the skills to it too if you wanted to attach the skill to your assignment.
Right. We're going to go to skills next. So so we'll see the screen again, which is good. So, you know, that's what I really like about Seesaw is that you can, I need to enter a folder name there. So it was asking me to, I did something wrong there. I was creating a folder. So I'm gonna put that one belonging to, there we go. Okay. Oh, I'm messing things up. Click there, and that's what I want to do. So I edit it and put it in that folder. So then you were saying if students opt out of work, we can actually choose to remove them from the assign activity piece.
Yeah, so if you're on the student, if you click on the edit student, the list comes out, and if Max, the parents decide that it's option 3, you can just uncheck Max and he's not going to receive anything.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. So again, organization. So some people are proactive organizers, and some people might be like, let's send stuff out and go like, ooh, have I lost my organization path? You're like, no, you have not. You can go back and assign a folder at a later date. So that is excellent to hear.
And Carissa is saying, Carissa, do you want to speak to that? Because I feel like that would be me, about being careful about what you put in each frame.
Hi, yeah. I just felt like I was trying so hard to make sure parents were getting so many photos for their kids that anytime they were outside or doing anything with a friend next to them, I was like, belonging and contributing, belonging and contributing. And then by the time you get back into trying to do report cards and you're looking through it, you have way too many. Or if I would pick collage, something that we did with problem solving, like making pretend nests with provocations, I would have everybody included in that, and then I'd have to it was harder for me to know the individual. So I went back and started just more focusing on the individual and a photo that connected with the learning, so it was really easy to put back into report cards.
Right. So it's almost like you're in that, the reflective stance though, like you use the folders were working for you at one time, but now as we go back and look, you're viewing them in a different way. You're using them, you're judging how you're using them in a different way.
Yeah, to make our lives a little bit easier after the fact.
Yeah, exactly. So in my sample class here, like I just clicked on like my Kylan as a student. And so you see that, the journal, the 3 items that are there, some of you have like 400 or 82 or, lots of them. The calendar function is interesting too here on this one because you select just the student in the calendar. So this is just Kylan's calendar. And so that might help you too with sort things. And just like if you're thinking reflecting back on their learner, what have they done since home? What have they done in the classroom that I want to go back and look at? That might be just another way of viewing the work as well. And the print PDF function, I wondered what that was. And so if you just click on that, I don't know how long this will take to do. I only had 3, so it's probably going to be fairly quick compared to what you have in your documentation. But it's like a nice little booklet of what they've done. So that might be a little easier on the eyes if you think about it. Compared to like scrolling, like you may want to just create that PDF version for yourself to have something to look at. So I'm not really sure how that could work, but I just wanted to show you that it's available there. Any other help from folders? I think we're getting really good at folders. It's just about like how do we become flexible to help ourselves organize the learning with all of that.
Pam, there was a question if there's a way to search for folders via a student so you could just see all the evidence for a folder for the particular frame.
I think so. So if you click on student and if you click on the folder itself, then you can sort to see the folders. So in this case, it will be Max, and there's literacy and numeracy pieces for Max. And then that will be his information. I think that's how that works. Just a second now. Max, folder, let's see, Max, just Max's things. And it's just literacy. So excellent question.
Yeah, so that's nice when you're going through and trying to work on communication and you want to really focus in, because all your student stories obviously are going to be different. So being able to, you know, really focus in and be intentional with everything and how you organize your classroom is really going to help you in the end.
And the other pieces is like, they're always going to be there. We're not going to break things, right? So we can always just go back and say, I want to select all the folders with that piece. Okay. And some of you have been using the private folder too, just so if you had other documentation that you weren't sharing with families, that's another option as well. Okay, so we're continuing our conversation about folders. We might want to just take a moment to though to pop back here to talk a little bit about skills. And we know, like during some learning time with our ECEs, they had the opportunity to come and learn about tagging of skills within Seesaw while teachers were out. We were doing our duty of protesting and picketing. So so they have a skill set or an introduction into the tagging of skills. And I believe some teachers are actually getting in there and tagging expectations or tagging skills for the students. So we are going to go and explore this. So if you have knowledge of this and you've been trying this out, please share with us, because it's really only been since about the end of February that we've been exploring information about the skills. And so we really would appreciate your input. You may notice the skills from a couple of places. So Alicia's pointed out here in this little bubble, and they all relate to kindergarten. So this is only available to kindergarten educators at this time, but teachers do have the opportunity of writing in their own expectations too. So if you know somebody that's in a different grade and is wondering about skills, they can add their own into it. So
hard work has been done for you guys though.
Yes,
Thank
exactly.
you for
So
that.
the 31 overall expectations have been put in. Yeah, so well, we have a highly motivated group, so let's see what we can do with that. Yeah. So from Seesaw Help Desk, the help, I was able to learn more about the skills piece, and so I invite you to visit the Seesaw Help as well. This is just an image, like once you get going, this is what your skills page will look like. It might be gray with just a bunch of zeros when you first start, and then numbers start to add up, and then color appears if you choose to. So, and that's just those of us that like organization might find this piece a little bit exciting to go through. And you may look at this and go like, you know what, I'm happy with how I'm organizing and process information. But I wondered right now if it's almost like a good place to be reflective and help me organize where I would put my thoughts towards writing the communication learning. The thing to note though is families and students will not see skills view or which skills their children have been tagged in. So that this is like the professional learning ground place to go with that. You will see where you can get to the skills in a couple of places. So if you're looking on the right, I should have flipped those around, but normally on the right-hand side of our screen, we have that journal activities inbox section, and you will see a skills, the little graduation cap. If you click on that, that will bring you to this drop-down menu that has some information about the skills that we can sort through. Or you can, as you're adding in a journal entry, an artifact for a student, you can hit the graduation cap, and that will get you to that place as well. So we'll take a walk through how that actually works. So I'm gonna go back to kindergarten. So as I'm getting myself set up here, Alicia, is there any questions that
I don't think there's anything right now.
So I've asked Carrie Miller and Michelle Henderson if we could use theirs as an example because they've been exploring along this. So thank you to that. And I'm going to do my very best to make sure I'm protecting students' privacy as we work live. That's always a risk. So I'll go into this. So we've got that calendar view. So This is much more realistic to active kindergarten classrooms. Like, you know, through the month, there's been lots of days where there's been things posted all of there. And so in the journal mode, again, you can sort through, but we're going to focus over here on the skills part. So you're probably wondering, how did this happen? Well, first of all, the district added the skills in for us. So if you look at, as a kindergarten teacher, click your wrench and make sure that your grade level is set at K. If you're an SK1, I'm not sure about how that works. If you've chosen other, you might want to just make sure you change it to K so you get your access to the expectations. And then scrolling down a little bit, when it gets into the skills section down here, okay, so managing the skills rating, color scheme, you can choose a color scheme that works for you. This one's set at a 5 scales for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We haven't really been directing people about the rating scales. Like, as a junior teacher, 4 seems to be how my head processes. But then you and your partner will determine what that means for you. And so we'll have a look at that. So some people may use no color until the very end, and other people may use color as not quite getting it, is red in this one, and green is they really got it. So they can use that as they move along. The manage skill button. So this is where you could add more skills to the bank. So if you're interested in creating your own, but let's just go with what the ones we have available to. So again, so if you're wondering where your skills are, make sure you're assigned to a kindergarten class. So I'm going to click on the skills here to see what this looks like. And so this is an active class where skills have been being used already. So every time a skill is being accessed or added in, it will appear up along the top. Okay. Most of the time it will be gray and we'll have the 0 in there until you start adding artifacts that have been tagged to an expectation. What the number ends up meaning is that there's one artifact that is related to kindergarten expectation, communicate with others in a variety of ways. The 3 means that there are 3 that go along with that. The educator team here has chosen to do some color coding to show, like, this is a pretty solid skill. I'm assuming that that's what their color code means. And so then you can see some students have lots of artifacts that have been tagged and others have not. Go along with that. I'm just going to take, again, Seesaw allows you to sort things quite well. So category and subject are the same. So pick one. So category, you can choose to sort and say, I only want to look at my categories that are belonging and contributing. So if we do that, the grid changes to overall expectation to show which expectation is and what artifacts have been tagged with that. But we also know that sometimes belonging and contributing, you know, there's those multiple strands where frames where we have many. So you may choose to tag that. That's done through the creation of the skills themselves. So only the ones that are just like demonstrating literacy and numeracy behaviors are there. If you want ones that are connected with 2, you click on that one. It changes. I'm going to pause for questions there, if anybody has any. We're good to go?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I don't keep my chat open, so I'm gonna close.
I believe too, if you click on like the 3, it will show you exactly which activities
yes.
go with that skill.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, thank you. You and I are thinking the same ways. So you can also sort by student there too. So thinking about how you write your reports, you may choose just to think, I want to think about one student at a time. So you can just siphon through the student and see all of the things that have been tagged for that student as well. So can you repeat your way of sorting things again? So if you want me to look at category, and then if I did this one, I'll choose this one, belonging and contributing. So what happens is the 3, you can actually click to see the artifact, the overall expectation appears, and then you see the artifact that has been collected for that student.
When I'm thinking about these communication of learning and how this has been kind of a time of chaos and a little bit of, uneasy for all of us, I do think, Pam, you had mentioned yesterday about even creating a folder that is a communication of learning folder. So if you choose one student, for example, and you think, I've really seen grow in this area, or this is the story I want to tell, just using those folders and then tagging those skills and really focusing in is really going to help you to kind of to hone in on the important stuff and that intentional piece. And now more important than ever, because we're all overwhelmed and bombarded.
So if we're looking at like a journal entry and you're thinking, well, how might I use skills now? So if a student has put this in, and it's a demonstrating literacy, numeracy, behavioral, you can then tag it here. So click on that icon for the skills tag, and then it comes up, and then you as an educator get to choose which one it is looking at. I won't do this because this is a live student one. Maybe I should. So then you would select the expectation that you would click to that and go through that. So maybe if you have not started tagging skills now, you may be thinking about what I want to communicate in a communication learning. I might go in, what's my literacy expectation I want to focus on, pull that out and go looking back through your student artifacts and go, there's an example of it, there's another example of it, and tag the skills that way. So when you go back and search, you have the story around the expectation. I would show you in mine, but my school didn't, the Lambton Kent PD school where I work in, they didn't add the kindergarten expectations to that. So that's why I needed to view a class today. So you have 2 places to add it. In skills, you can have it shown to you where they're added, or as you are creating a journal entry, you can add the skill that will pop up there. And one thing I have not looked at is, can you put skills on an activity? Wonder if the answer is in the audience today.
Sansia looked like she knows the answer. I'm gonna throw it to her.
Yes, you can. Just like where you go, where she was telling you to edit the folders, it also allows you to edit skills there.
Okay, so in an activity, then you would go in and you can edit those.
When you assign it,
yeah,
when you assign it, you can edit the skills.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I figured Seesaw would have a way of doing that. Okay, so we just wanted to show that, as you're thinking about that communication and learning, you're always thinking about making judgments about what you choose to put into the each of the frames. And so just wanted to expose you to a different way that you might be looking at how do you manage this information. But I highly recommend the Seesaw help videos as well, because this was just a quick little access to that. But as you're looking for communicating there, you might be thinking about how do we keep in that asset stance when we talk about our students learning. So, using some of those sentence starters, like, they're now ready for some things. This is a building block for a certain important math skill. This shows that those innovation skills or problem solving skills are there. So just thinking about how we might be able to use our documentation that we have to help support telling the story.
And Rosa was asking in the chat if the PD was available online that the ECEs had the chance to engage in. So all of those sessions, I believe, are recorded and are on our program blog, Journey to the Blog, and want to check those out. They are there to watch.
Let's have a look and see if they're there now. So,
and I also, I know, Pam, we're getting somewhat close, but I wanted to say thank you to those people who have been really patient. I know in the Google Forms and the feedback forms, I know there's been some people who have been asking about what the communication of learning will look like. And we've kind of been holding off until we got a bit of information. So we appreciate you being patient. We didn't ignore your feedback, but waiting till we had a little bit more to give you.
Yeah. Yes, so those are recorded sessions. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it's at 2:54. It took way longer than I thought. Okay. So questions about that, but we did want to, what was next there, Alicia? We want to show some of those classes. Maybe if we got next week, we get plans for that.
So maybe if we can kind of skip ahead to the what would you like to see in next week. Pam and I we're trying to be reflective of what we think will be beneficial for all of you. This week we did plan on having some conversation around those virtual choice boards and the virtual classrooms, which I know is like the biggest thing right now. And I will be honest, I had some fun with it. So we wondered for next week's office hours, what you would like from us or how we can support you. I know with the options coming out this week for families, there may be some families that might be saying, hey, we want more live teacher support. And so we didn't know if you wanted to journey the world of Google Meets and FDK, or if you would like us to kind of continue on and do some of those choice boards. We'd love if you could maybe give us some feedback either in the chat or come off mic as where you would like us to go next week. Because you guys are such great listeners, but you're so quiet with the feedback. Oh, Danielle has a question. Does anyone have any ideas around, oh, it's moving. Does anyone have any ideas around what they are planning to do option 1 of the live teaching? So, yeah.
And to clarify, that means like a little bit like that connecting with the teacher more. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah, because we were told that like for right now I have like little introductions sometimes on some of my activities if they're more difficult, showing the kids how to move things around. I do read alouds, but we were told it has to be like live in the moment. So I'd have to do like a Google Meet, which we weren't currently doing because my teaching partner was afraid that would overwhelm parents starting something new. So now that I'm looking to do like a Google Meet with 2 children so far, what do I want that to look like for kindergarten? Like, it's not like I'm actually teaching a math lesson here on how to solve something. This is kindergarten. So I just wondered if anybody had any ideas of what they're planning to do if they're in that same position.
Pam?
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear me or see
Yes.
me.
Oh, and I was like, I need to get back to Tressa. I didn't have any answers until yesterday.
I figured it was a time crunch thing, so no problem. I just actually got off. Wednesdays are my Google Meet days. Myself and my partner do 2 meets on Google Meets with our kids, and we've been doing different themes. And we've done everything from literacy to math. We've done scavenger hunts. So we come with a list of items and have them go hunt through their house. So we sit on Google Meet, and then we have the kids come up, and it's amazing now how many of our 4 and 5-year-olds are actually working the Google Meet themselves. The parents may log them on, but then these kids are turning on and off the mic. They're actually even helping each other and talking to each other. So even with 2 kids, you add yourself and your teaching partner in, and I mean, 4 people in a chat is a great way to actually have some open dialogue and contact going on So it's kind of an easy way to kind of do. So there's just some like different things we've done. Like I said, today was loose parts. So we just had them draw, like make stuff, and we showed them different things. Last week was a scavenger hunt. The week before was a Lego creation. And then necklaces for Mother's Day. Like I said, we've done bingo. We've done read alouds. There's just different things that you can do. But yeah, just only having 2 kids, I wouldn't fear it. It's actually probably easier than doing a huge class.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Did you schedule who has the kids in each one, or you just have it like an open time and they can choose which time they come, or?
We've done both. We started at first with a great big thing, one time, and then we got a bit, but we didn't get much. So then we thought, okay, we'll give them 2 options. Like if you're interested in the morning or you're interested in the afternoon, and we were still doing a large amount, but then we even broke it even more so that my partner had a set and then I had a set. We actually invite in the EAs in our school, and our principal sits in. Our prep teachers join us. So we kind of just randomly, there could be 4 teachers and 7 kids. That's kind of a whole Google Meet. And then we've gone back to now for the last 2 weeks where my partner and I are in the same one together. And we're doing like a whole group. Then we put it out to the parents, what time works best for you, which one works, and we slot them in. We send it like a birthday party invitation. Hey, you're yeah, we've done scavenger hunt video, like, hey, it's totally like what time it's at, what you need to bring. And then usually the night before, I kind of give a heads up, like for the Lego one, I made my son take us on a tour of his Lego stuff. And for the jewelry one, I had my daughter go through her beading and stuff like that. Today's for the loose parts, I just showed them all the different things I found, and took them on a walk around my house finding stuff.
Might be a nice connection between like a provocation video shared on Monday, and on Wednesday we're going to talk about it. So give the family some time to respond to it. And then maybe you can push that thinking, because that was a comment from earlier in the session, is that maybe the answers were pretty closed. How do we create that environment where it's open?
Yeah. So I'm wondering if next week, because there's a lot of people who are kind of starting to there's some really, really great conversations taking place kind of in the chat. So I'm wondering if maybe next week we do journey what that option 1 might look like for FDK.
Yeah.
And I know that there are some people, I don't know, you might be wishing you hadn't mentioned anything in the chat, but there are some people out there that are saying, like, I've been doing some that maybe we could have you on, and maybe we could open it up as kind of like a little panel and have that conversation.
And if it hasn't gone well, we like to hear that too, because we like to know what are the things that are challenges or things that we're like, whoops, and then next week we fix that kind of thing. We'd love to hear that.
Yeah. And I also, just before we kind of log off here, because we are at that time, for those teachers who are interested in the Bitmoji and virtual classrooms and choice boards, that is something we can do in the future for sure. We just want to make sure you feel comfortable with where we're at and the direction that we're going as a board. So I did put a couple links up in the chat if you did want to check out the virtual kind of connections. That's what I used to kind of play around last night. So they're there. And have a look.
Did our primary people do that on Tuesday as well? So
they did. And actually these 2 links came from the teachers shared. So, and they were really, really helpful, step by step, easy to follow.
And they might, if you're interested, you could probably view them on the YouTube of the primary office hours. So you can have a little snippet into that. Thank you.
Okay. So next week, I guess we'll chat about option 1. We'll talk about Google Meets, what that might look like, and we can kind of troubleshoot. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Tressa, for popping in, and a few other contributors. I'm sorry I forgot your names. So I shouldn't laugh at that. I'm sorry I forgot your names as you piped in and shared. So we really appreciate that. But go in.
Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Email us. We are new to this as well, and we'd love to kind of help you through it. So let us know.
Okay. Take care of yourselves, people. Rod, are you running off somewhere today?
You know what?